Okay, so today, guys, we are back with the microstakes guide. Thank you so much for your support on the first episode of the series. It is my most liked video so far, so I really appreciate it. I originally introduced this series as a play and explain, but in the last week or so, I've also decided to include some concept videos. Quite a few people in the comments asking to see some things broken down in a little bit more detail, so that's what I'm going to do. I'll probably do play and explain and concept videos interchangeably for this series in the future. So today we're going to be talking about blockers and how we might use them to inform our decisions in a hand. And in this video, most notably, whether or not we have correct blockers to call down our opponent. So without further ado, we have pocket queens in the big blind, and the villain that we do know fairly well. He is a watcher of the stream also, which won't play too much into my thinking. He opens the hijack and we 3-bet from the big blind, which is very standard, and he elects to call. Now, we see 10-8-3 with two hearts, and I think on this board, we're not going to talk too much about this, but I think half pot is very reasonable. You could consider going slightly larger, but I think the stack sizes can get a little bit awkward. We certainly don't want to go smaller. Our hand needs a lot of protection. We don't have a heart. All these things make me quite happy with the half pot size bet. And our opponent lets to call. Now, let's think about what our opponent might do this with. So he raced on the hijack, and then he called our 3-bet from the big blind. Now, he can have stuff like Jack 10 suited, pocket 9s, maybe even pocket jacks. Obviously, he's probably not going to raise with 10s and 8s. He wouldn't ever have pocket 3s or 10-8. So his best hands are obviously 10s and 8s. 100 big blinds deep, I think, and certainly against me, my opponent's going to have some 4-bets. So he's going to want to bluff 4-bet, which means he's 100 deep, going to want to include a lot of value 4-bets, stuff like kings and aces, and the other two queens. So I'm not concerned about him having those hands. I think that deeper, he would definitely consider just calling with them, even just versus a 3-bet. But I think I can rule them out of his range, given that he's quite an aggressive opponent on this occasion. So we're looking at 10s and 8s that I don't think would raise. Then obviously he has some overcard heart draws, maybe some stuff like, ace 9 of hearts, but pocket 9s, pocket jacks, ace 10, queen 10, jack 10, obviously we block queen 10, and two suited combos of queen 10, which is relevant. But stuff like that is going to be his continuing range on the flop. Like I said, don't expect him to have any slow played pairs better than mine. When we go to the turn, this is obviously a spot where this card is not good for our hand, but our range is obviously doing very, very well, and it's certainly doing better than our opponent's range. It's a very important concept to think about. Now, we are going to bet here quite a lot. In fact, solvers are doing a lot of betting here, and obviously our general range is going to be doing a lot of betting here. Now, would we want to check here? You could definitely consider it. I don't think it's unreasonable to check here, but I think a lot of the time we do want to bet. We do have a significant range advantage. Those hands that we're talking about on the flop, our opponent having like 9s and jack 10, ace 10, and pocket jacks, they're certainly going to still be in there. Now, just because our opponent is going to have some king queen of hearts, some king queen, he can't have king queen of spades. He's going to have king queen of hearts. He may have some floated ace king, but our read from before the flop is that our opponent's going to be doing lots of 4-betting as a bluff. So he's definitely going to be wanting to take ace king in there as well, I believe. So we have a huge ace king advantage. We also have an aces advantage, a king's advantage, and we're going to use that. We also have 10s. Obviously, our opponent has 10s as well, but that's also in our range. So we have a pretty sizable range advantage on this turn. So we can definitely leverage it by also betting. And we want to size for an amount that makes sense for us to look like at least we're going to be putting our opponent in some tough spots by jamming the river. Now, versus this bet, our opponent now is going to be doing some folding with parts of his range. I think pocket 9s certainly consider folding, but things like ace 10 are going to have to call, blocking ace king. Obviously, we're talking about that being a significant part of our range. Obviously, we're going to see bet the flop quite a lot with that. So he's definitely going to have to call with stuff like ace 10. I've only bet just less than half the pot, so he's certainly going to still have equity. He could certainly still be winning, depending on what suits he has. Obviously, he may unblock hearts, which would be a consideration as well. He's not going to have stuff like ace 10 offsuit. So when he does have ace 10, it's going to be the suited combos, so he's not going to have hearts because the 10 of hearts is out there. So stuff like that's going to have to continue. Even stuff like jacks is going to be in a tough spot. Jack 10, he is going to have some king X, but the most important thing to consider and why we are able to bet this turn is that our opponent's not going to have a significant portion of king X in his range. Quite a lot of that's going to be doing some folding on the flop, right? So obviously he's going to have stuff like maybe King Jack of Spades that we did size up, so he may even consider folding that, knowing that he's going to be facing some turn barrels. But it is probably a hand that he's going to float at quite a significant frequency. The main kings he's going to have are going to be King 10 suited, which there are only 2 combos remaining of, and stuff like King Queen of Hearts, King Jack of Hearts, but not really Ace King of Hearts. Like we said, we expect our opponent to 4-bet that pre-flop, but given the opponent type he is, and that we started with 100 big blinds. So our opponent calls, and yeah, obviously stuff like King Queen of Hearts, Jack 10, Ace 10. And the thing about our suits on the flop is, on the turn is, our opponent will fold King Queen of Clubs, but he'd certainly consider, I think, floating with something like King Queen of Spades. So blocking that gives us even more confidence to bet the turn with our range advantage. So our opponent calls, and the turn is not a very good turn. The river is not a very good river card for us. It's a 10 of spades. Now, when we were thinking about whether we wanted to bet the turn, our hand made a lot of sense. And given our range advantage, made a lot of sense. Now, do we now continue to have a range advantage on this river? I don't believe that we do. We have a lot less 10x than our opponent does, given the ranges that we were just describing. And given that, we're going to want to do a lot of checking on this river. Even with stuff like Ace King, we're even now going to start threading in kings in there because we're going to need to have some checks, because we're not going to want to bet on a 10 very often. Even something like aces, I think, is going to want to check. So we're going to be either doing a lot of checking here with pretty much everything, just based on what our range is going to look like and what our opponent's range is going to look like based on what we've broken down. We're going to want a lot of checking and then deciding on the river and seeing what combos of our hands make sense to call down with, what kind of things that we're going to have as strong hands that can call. So we do start with a check, and our opponent elects to go all in. Now, obviously, this isn't a very nice spot. It's not the kind of spot that you enjoy being in, but we have to think about it logically. Now, what are the good things about our hand in terms of calling, right? Well, we block King Queen of Spades. I've gone back and forth in this hand quite a lot. We block King Queen of Spades, but do we think our opponent's going to jam that? Remember, our opponent's a good thinking player, okay? Do we think our opponent would jam King Queen of Spades, knowing that this 10 is so good for his range, and knowing that we could probably be checking Ace King here, and knowing that he has a lot of 10s that he could also be jamming? Probably not, right? When he floated the flop, King Queen of Clubs for a half pot is not going to be something that he's going to be floating. I think he would fold that 100% frequency. I don't think he ever is going to be floating that. I think that would be a significant mistake. So having the Queen of Clubs, not that good. Apart from the fact that we can block some King 10 of, some Queen 10 of clubs. So that's now only one combo of Queen 10 that he can have, which we definitely spoke about him being able to have as a value bet here, and obviously his action so far dictates that you could definitely have. Obviously, the Queen 10 of clubs, if I didn't have the Queen of clubs. So that's one good thing. We don't block Queen 10 of spades because the 10 of spades is on the board. So we're only blocking one combo here of his value hands, because when he gets to this river, he's really not going to be betting King Queen of spades very often, okay? What else is good about our hand as a call down? Well, we don't block any of the heart draws that our opponent could have floated. So stuff like Jack 9 of hearts, we expect to do some raising on the flop for sure, being a combo draw. Depends how our opponent wants to construct his range. He could be constructing all of his sets as a call, which means he would have to call with all his draws as well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have enough strong hands when he does decide to raise. So he could feasibly, if he's constructing his range that way, still have that hand. Stuff like Queen Jack of Hearts, I would probably expect to do some jamming on the turn. So we're looking at stuff like Ace Queen and Ace Jack of Hearts mainly as our opponent's bluffs. There's not that many combos of hands, considering I'd expect from this type of opponent to probably experience some turbulence on the turn when we bet. So in terms of jamming, obviously he's going to have significant equity, and he's going to have some fold equity when I'm betting stuff like this. Ace Jack and Ace Queen of Hearts that don't have the up and down straight draw to go with the flush draw, and they have the nut flush draws, are going to be his main calls on the turn that are now going to have to bluff this river, knowing that 10 is very good for his range. Now, what 10s is he going to have? Obviously, Jack 10 of clubs, Jack 10 of diamonds, King 10 of clubs, which is unblocked, ace 10. There's 2 combos left of that. So when you start to break it down, originally I quite wanted to call in this spot. When you start to break it down, our opponent's just going to have a lot of 10s here. Our bet sizing is not going to rule out any of the 10s that we're talking about. Our opponent's not going to be value betting a king, so the fact that we block king, queen of spades is not very important. King, queen of hearts is not something, given our range advantage on the turn and what kind of range of hands we're going to be betting the turn with, such as strong ace kings and aces and stuff. Considering we're going to be checking a lot of that on the river, and our opponent, I give credit to him, he's going to know that. So he's really not going to be wanting to jam king, queen for value here. So what we want to do is block some 10s and have his action say to us, we don't have as many 10s here. Now, we can't say that about this hand. The solver here, we did look it up on the stream. The chat did it for me, which is very nice of them. And on the river, we're doing some blocking, but then a lot of checking and then folding half the time to this bet with these particular suits. If we had the queen of diamonds, then the solver is doing a little bit more calling based on blocking the 2 combos of queen 10 suited. But the ace 10 suited combos, the jack 10 suited combos, the fact that we expect our opponent to do some jamming on the turn with probably pocket 8s, pocket 10s, king 10, potentially, even though he locks up some of the board. I just expect this opponent to do some bluffing with jack 9 of hearts and queen jack of hearts. Now, even if he doesn't do that, and he does get to this river with those hands, then we're still only really looking at like 4 combos of hearts. Given that he's going to check back jacks, he's going to check back pocket 9s, unless he wants to bluff with those, depending on how aggressive he wants to be there. Stuff like king jack of hearts is going to check back this river. So we're really looking at king 10, which is a combo of, this is the combo remaining of queen 10, 2 combos of jack 10, 2 combos of ace 10. Our opponent's going to be pretty well balanced in this spot. So this is a really, really tough decision. And I think I would just rather have the queen of diamonds, guys. I think that's what it really boils down to. I think it's a very, very interesting spot, and I was very, very close to calling. And given the opponent type, I was leaning towards a call. But I did, in the end, decide to come out with a fold, which I think is reasonable. Unfortunately, our opponent went straight into the stream chat and told us that he had the ace jack of hearts and he was glad to get one through against me. I think his play is excellent. I think it's very, very reasonable. Certainly a very tough opponent and someone I don't enjoy playing too many pots against. And I hope to not have to be in this spot too many times against in the future. But yeah, the ace jack of hearts, like I said, very reasonable bluffing candidate. He's not really going to get here with that many bluffs, like I said, and he's not going to be value betting a king. So when we get there on the river with this particular combo, it's not as good as having potentially the queen of diamonds to block 2 of those combos of his value, which is going to mean he's a little bit more, if not still value heavy, a little bit more skewed towards his bluffs. So I hope this was useful. We're going to be doing this every other episode of the Microstakes Guide. If you do want me to play any specific stakes or look at any specific concepts, then please do let me know in the comments. If you haven't already subscribed, I'd really appreciate it. If you could do that, I do work really hard on these videos, so it means a lot to me. And then drop a like on the video as well. It does really help out the algorithms and things like that. But for now, guys, that's going to do it. I will see you guys on the next one. Probably some more stream highlights tomorrow. Maybe another video with Bean coming up as well. But in the meantime, stay safe, dudes, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.